Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe, and turn on notifications.
Samantha believed she had finally found stability when she met Marcus. She was 30 years old, and he was 35. Everything happened very quickly. 6 months of dating, a simple wedding, and a life change that seemed promising. They were at different stages in life, but at that moment, it didn't matter much to her. Marcus was a calm man, methodical, always correct in his words and actions. He seemed like the safe harbor she had been searching for. At first, Samantha dedicated herself to the marriage as if it were her main mission. She organized the house, adapted her routine, and adjusted her plans so they could both move in the same direction. She had a stable job, managed finances responsibly, and believed the relationship would grow over time. But the connection between them was shallow. Conversations were always brief, limited to what was necessary for daily life. They shared the same space but felt distant, as if they were merely fulfilling an unspoken agreement of coexistence. As the months turned into years, this lack of emotional connection became more evident. Samantha noticed that Marcus didn't open up, keeping his thoughts and feelings guarded as if they were secrets protected by insurmountable walls. She tried to start conversations, provoke reflections, and share her concerns, but in return, she received short, dry answers, always accompanied by that look that seemed lost in some distant point. For a long time, she tried to adapt to his way of being. She believed that with patience, she could break through that barrier. However, as the marriage progressed, frustration began to weigh on her. What she once saw as a subtle trait, she now perceived as coldness. Hugs became mechanical, kisses became rare, and nights always ended the same way, with both of them turning to opposite sides of the bed, in silence. It was at this point that everything started to fall apart completely. Samantha lost her job in an unexpected layoff. The feeling of failure consumed her from within. The routine, which was already lonely, became an even deeper hole. She spent her mornings staring at the ceiling, trying to understand at what point her life had become so empty. The days were all the same. Marcus left early, came home late, and barely looked her in the eyes. Without perspective and feeling lost, she sought professional help. She scheduled an appointment with David, a therapist known for his warm approach. In the first session, she was nervous and insecure, but David quickly put her at ease. He had a gentle way of guiding conversations, knowing exactly where to touch so she could open up without fear. For the first time in years, Samantha felt like she was truly being heard. The sessions became the highlight of her week. She eagerly awaited the day and time when she could sit in front of David and tell him everything she had kept inside. The pain, the doubts, the emptiness at home, the sense of failure at work, and above all, the loneliness that had accompanied her for years. David listened to every word attentively. His responses were always understanding, his advice seemed to embrace her in a way no one else did. Samantha threw herself into therapy as if she had found refuge. In the toughest moments, she remembered his words and felt immediate relief. The bond between them grew silently, almost imperceptibly. She believed it was all just gratitude. She told herself she admired David only because he was someone who understood her, someone who had offered support amid the storm. However, deep down, what she felt had already surpassed admiration. She thought about him outside of the sessions, remembered his gestures, his words, the way he looked at her while she poured out her heart. She started to dress up more for the appointments, choosing clothes that made her feel beautiful, applying perfume more carefully, and looking at herself in the mirror with a sparkle she had forgotten existed. Inside, she tried to rationalize all of this. She silently repeated to herself that it was just a natural reaction to someone offering support during a moment of vulnerability. But something inside her screamed that it was more than that. Each session became more intense. She noticed her own heart racing when he smiled, her hands trembling when he complimented her strength. It was as if, without realizing it, she was walking toward an abyss and, even aware of the risks, kept moving forward. Samantha believed that what she felt was pure, harmless, just a response to the warmth that was missing at home. She didn't imagine that, at that moment, she was taking the first steps toward a story that would forever change her life. Samantha's routine had already begun to revolve around the therapy sessions. Each meeting with David was awaited with silent anticipation, almost like a hidden addiction. She arrived burdened with thoughts and left feeling lighter, as if the exchanged words could dissolve all the accumulated anguish. With each new conversation, she felt more comfortable sharing intimate details of her life, and David, with the calculated patience of someone who knows how to engage another, always provided precise responses, almost as if he could read her mind. Over time, the atmosphere between them began to change. Their gazes lingered longer before breaking away, their words carried tones that moved beyond formality, and compliments became frequent, though still subtle. Samantha noticed the changes but preferred to pretend they weren't real. In her mind, it was just the reflection of a friendship blossoming, a bond strengthening simply because they felt comfortable with each other. Until one random afternoon, during a session when she was talking about the void in her marriage and the constant feeling of abandonment, the mood between them took on a different weight. David, upon hearing again about the loneliness she carried, stood up and approached her, breaking the safe distance they had always maintained. Without saying a word, he gently touched Samantha's face, and she, surprised, remained motionless. Their eyes met for seconds that felt eternal until he kissed her. Samantha didn't pull back. On the contrary, she gave in immediately, as if she had been waiting for that exact moment. Everything she had avoided admitting became undeniable. The kiss wasn't brief. The tension built up in previous encounters exploded there, without barriers, without breaks. That act broke down the last trace of resistance between them. From that day on, what were once therapy sessions became disguised meetings. She scheduled appointments even when there was nothing to discuss. The office stopped being a professional space and became the stage for a hidden romance, fueled by desire and the thrill of prohibition. The fear of being discovered existed, but Samantha ignored it, believing no one would ever suspect a respected therapist and a woman seen as discreet. Each new encounter became more intense. She left feeling a mix of guilt and euphoria, torn between the awareness that she was betraying her husband and the certainty that she had found, in David, everything she had always wanted. At night at home, she looked at Marcus with indifference. His presence had become a constant annoyance. She avoided conversations, claimed fatigue, and retreated whenever possible. The marriage continued to appear normal to those on the outside, but internally, it was already destroyed. Samantha no longer made any effort to keep up appearances. She felt so involved with David that she saw Marcus as an outdated obstacle. Still, there was something different about David. At first, he was all attention, always willing, full of sweet words. But as the encounters went on, she began to notice a subtle distance. He responded with less enthusiasm, avoided eye contact frequently, and dodged extending conversations outside moments of intimacy. Samantha tried to ignore it, but she couldn't help noticing that something had changed in him. Even so, she persisted in the relationship. She called often, sent messages at odd hours, and scheduled meetings with increasingly flimsy excuses. Inside her, a fear grew that David was trying to distance himself, but at the same time, a desperate need to keep him close pushed her forward, no matter the cost. Samantha believed it was just a phase. She thought that with patience, she could bring back that passionate David from the early weeks. She didn't see that, little by little, she was sinking deeper, sustaining a relationship that, for David, had already begun to lose its shine. While she gave herself without reservation, David was already calculating every move, like someone who realized he had crossed a dangerous line and was slowly trying to erase the traces. Samantha, blinded by passion and need, didn't realize she was walking alone, keeping a romance alive that, for him, already had its days numbered. Marcus was always a quiet man, but his silence didn't mean a lack of perception. On the contrary. While Samantha got more and more lost in her affair with David, Marcus observed every detail, not letting anything slip. The change in her behavior was clear. The extended hours, the repeated excuses, the distracted gaze during meals. She avoided his company, distanced herself even in the simplest moments, as if his mere presence were a burden. He didn't show any reaction. He simply stored every piece of evidence inside him. Behind his calm exterior, something was brewing. Marcus always believed that making a scene or confronting without preparation was useless. He valued control. So, he planned every step carefully. He didn't rush, didn't let emotions take over. One random day, while Samantha was getting ready for yet another one of her appointments, Marcus acted. He bought a small recording device, discreet and easy to hide. Without saying a word, he placed the device deep in her bag, where he knew she would never look. Afterward, he acted as if nothing had happened, maintaining the same serene look, as if he were oblivious to everything happening around him. When she left, Marcus didn't follow her. He simply waited for her to return. He spent the hours tending to his things, showing no sign of anxiety. When Samantha returned, she greeted him with the same indifference as always, as if following a script she had memorized. As soon as he had the chance, Marcus retrieved the recorder from Samantha's bag. He sat down, put on the headphones, and pressed play. At first, the voices were low, like whispers, but soon the content became impossible to ignore. He heard the clear sound of kisses. Long, intense, with no care or discretion. The moans followed, muffled but unmistakable, leaving no doubt about what was happening there. Marcus kept his face still, staring into nothingness, but without removing the headphones. The recording continued, and soon the words began to emerge, one after another, cutting through the air like blades. Samantha said she had never felt anything so strong, that she felt alive with David, that she was tired of living a lie at home. David responded with the same intensity, saying he loved her, that he thought about her all the time, that he could no longer see her as just a patient. They laughed together, exchanged secrets, and made plans for the future. Each sentence was a sharp blow, delivered without anesthesia. Marcus listened to everything with a terrifying coldness, like someone watching the collapse of something that no longer meant anything to him. He listened until the very last second. When the recording ended, he didn't hesitate. He separated the most incriminating parts, saved the files, and began to build something bigger. For Marcus, this moment was no longer just about betrayal. It was a matter of principles, of justice. He knew rules had been broken here, rules that needed consequences. With the complete material in hand, Marcus prepared a formal complaint against David with the State Therapy Board. He presented the audio recordings, the evidence, the records. The content was indisputable. Explicit details of an involvement that should never have existed within the therapist-patient relationship. After filing the complaint, Marcus didn't waste time. He called Samantha into the bedroom with a calm but firm tone of voice. She appeared at the door, carefree, as if it were just another ordinary night. Without saying a word, he grabbed the recorder, pressed play, and let the sound echo throughout the entire room. As soon as the recording began, she tried to maintain her composure, but soon recognized her own voice. "I've been waiting for this all day." "Me too. You have no idea how much I thought about you last night." "I love you, David." "I love you too, Sam." Her face turned pale, but before the worst part of the recording played, she exploded. "You're sick. How could you do this? This is a crime. This is an invasion of privacy. You had no right to record me." She attacked him with sharp words, trying to shift the focus of the situation, placing all the blame on him. But Marcus simply stared, in silence, letting the recording continue uninterrupted. When the sound of moans filled the room, she froze. Her eyes went blank, as if her body had been emptied from within. Tears began to fall uncontrollably. She tried to breathe, but the crying suffocated her. And it was at that moment that the excuses began, all as fragile as she was at that instant. I was confused. I felt so alone. You ignored me. I didn't want it to be like this. I made a mistake, but it was a moment of weakness. It doesn't mean I stopped loving you. I didn't know what I was doing. Her words came out between sobs, stumbling in a desperate attempt to erase what had already been exposed. She searched for any argument, but everything she said sounded empty, small compared to the recording that still echoed. Marcus waited for the recording to finish, without interrupting once. When the last second of audio ended, he raised his gaze, with a calmness that cut through the air around him, and said with dry firmness, without changing his tone. "Please, pack your things and leave." Samantha stood there, trembling, unsure how to react. But Marcus had already ended that conversation before it even began. For him, everything had already been said. The news of David's license suspension spread quickly. As soon as the State Therapy Board received the evidence sent by Marcus, recordings, messages, and records of encounters, the punishment was immediate. The rules were clear and strict. Having an intimate relationship with a patient was a serious and unforgivable violation. David was suspended on the same day. His license was revoked indefinitely, and his name was added to public records as an example of unethical conduct. The entire town was in shock. Many who knew David as a respected professional couldn't believe what they were seeing. He lost everything he had built over years of career, and his reputation collapsed irreversibly. While Samantha tried to deal with the humiliation and the weight of her choices, now living in her mother's house, reality showed itself to be crueler every day. Marcus continued with a single focus: justice. He contacted a lawyer and filed a lawsuit against David based on the professional negligence law, an American law that allows victims of professional misconduct to file legal actions in cases of abuse of trust and ethical violations. With all the evidence in hand, the case was clear and straightforward. There was no way for David to escape. The court ruled in favor of Marcus. David was ordered to pay significant compensation for emotional damages and psychological suffering, along with all legal expenses. It was a considerable amount, enough for Marcus to reorganize his life comfortably, without depending on anyone or anything. The divorce was also finalized quickly. Samantha, faced with proven infidelity, walked away with almost nothing and received no alimony. She lost everything: the marriage, financial comfort, stability, and even her lover, who disappeared after the suspension of his license. David left town in silence, without contact, without explanations, erasing himself from everyone's lives, including hers. Marcus moved on with serenity. He relocated to another city and started over without rushing, maintaining the discretion that had always been his hallmark. He worked, rebuilt his routine, and began living with the lightness of someone who had been betrayed but knew how to act with intelligence and justice. Samantha stayed in her mother's house, isolated and without prospects. She carried the weight of the choices she made every day, knowing she had given up everything for a romance that didn't even survive the scandal. And Marcus, far away, continued his path with dignity, without looking back. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next time.